Good evening and welcome to the March edition of Sterling's Nightlife. I'm your host, Stephen Chapman. In this edition, we will be bringing you a look at our new Teacher of the Year, an exhibition of art from some of our Lady Knights to celebrate Women's Month, the Beautiful Baby Egg Project, the 1997 Ukrainian exchange video from the fall, and the preparation that has been put in so that this year's musical will be a success. March is Women's Month. Each day at Sterling, we honored a different female achiever and a famous quote from an important woman in history. Tonight on Nightlife, we have a real treat for you. Here is some artwork from some of our Lady Knights.
Through art, I create whatever I see in my mind's eye, and I can let others see what I see. Anything I can imagine, I can put on paper.
In my work, I create my own world. The sun, Venus, Mercury, the whole universe revolves around me. I like to draw because I find it easy to express myself on paper. My artwork always seems to reflect the way I feel inside.
Sometimes it's hard for me to express my true feelings. My art says everything without using words.
My art is my way of viewing reality. The way I express my art cannot be put into words. It's just the way I'm feeling depending on the work I'm creating. Art lets me express my feelings in ways words cannot explain. I don't really know why I use art to express myself. It's just something that I can't put into words.
Sometimes I can't explain how I feel, so I draw instead. I can't describe some of the warped, insane things I think, so I illustrate it. My art is me, my soul, out where everyone can see it.
Excellent job, girls. Your work is an inspiration to everyone. It's almost time for this year's spring delegation to travel overseas to Ukraine as part of Sterling's exchange program. This past fall, students hosted exchange students from Gymnasia number 32 in Kiev. It was a lot of work, and now for your viewing pleasure, we bring you the fall exchange video.
What you're about to see is the video rendition of our fall 1997 hosting of the Ukrainian student delegation from Gymnasia number 32 in Kiev, Ukraine. This is as the students arrive in our media center about 1 o'clock in the morning. They had a long flight from Paris through Kiev, and as you can see, the students are suffering a little bit of jet lag. Very exciting for the American students to host students they stayed with in the previous spring. This was the first Sunday social. It was at the Bromley Estates complex of Mr. Domenico. It was the first opportunity all the students had to get together with the parents It was a good social, and again, still a little bit of jet lag visible in the eyes of the Ukrainian students. It takes about 4 days to get over that kind of feeling. But it was a good opportunity for everybody to get together, and they enjoyed it very much. Again, the Ukrainian students are beginning to enjoy some of the sights and sounds and smells and tastes and feels of being in America. Our first tour was of the Philadelphia Historic District. Here you see the students assembling in front of Independence Hall. It's a very interesting tour, I think, both for the Americans and for the Ukrainian students. On the left, we have the principal of Gymnasia 32, Lydia, and the vice principal, Larissa. The tour of the Philadelphia Historic District is a perfunctory part of our program. Students visit a variety of places in the city, Philadelphia being one of the most historic cities in the United States. Of course, here you see some students at Penn's Landing. Students basically on the exchange in the fall phase, they tour, and then in between they attend classes with their American counterparts. So it has an academic component, a cultural component, a sightseeing component. Of course, everybody wants to experience as much of America as they possibly can when they're here. And here again you see some of the unique aspects of American Thanksgiving breakfast at Sterling High School prior to our football game. Again, it's a very unique experience for Ukrainians. They don't have this sort of school-related activities, the pomp and circumstance of Thanksgiving Day game. We had, again, beautiful weather for the most of our fall exchange. And here you see the Sterling Knights getting ready to play their arch-rival Collingswood. Always a good game. On that weekend, we take advantage of the days off from school, and we did a tour of Washington. Here's the group shot in front of the Capitol. We take the walking tour of Arlington Cemetery. And again, we had good weather for most of our trip. This is the Korean Memorial. If you haven't had the opportunity to get to see it, it's really a moving piece and very well done, directly across from the Vietnam Memorial. Crowds are constantly at both places, and again, I think it gives the Ukrainian students an understanding and appreciation of the kinds of experiences Americans have had in their history. Of course, here is the shot across the mall from the Lincoln Memorial. Most of the students found Washington to be one of the most interesting and one of their favorite stops on this American excursion. Now, of course, depends on where you were at the time, sometimes New York, sometimes Washington. Here's Apollo-Soyuz inside the Air and Space Museum, the first American cooperation with the Soviet Union in space. The American History Museum, part of the Smithsonian Institution, is a great stop for anybody coming to America or anybody from America. And the following day we toured New York. We took the Staten Island ferry, across the harbor towards Battery Park. It was again a lucky day for everyone because the weather was very good and the winds were low, so we were able to go up onto the tower. And again, the view from the trade towers of the panorama is just unbelievable. Here you're looking at the Brooklyn Bridge and then down towards Manhattan, Fifth Avenue and Broadway. New York's one unique place in the world. There's no place like it, where you'll see anything and everything. Again, some puppeteers at South Street Seaport. We did stop for lunch. Back downtown, going down Fifth Avenue. New York, of course, is the city that never stops, and that was, I think, maybe the best day tour for everyone. And Times Square, again, at night, no place like it in the world. Here you see the teachers and students together, grasping the moment, the time they were there. Atlantic City has its own unique flavor, and again, for all the students, it's very interesting to see the ocean. Ukraine, of course, is situated on the Black Sea, which has some kinds of coastlines and beaches, and it's very, very nice, but it's not like AC and the Atlantic and the waves and the salt air. And again, another very good day for everyone. The boardwalk was interesting. And here in front of Bally's Wild West, the Conestoga wagon became an attraction for everybody to take pictures in front of. And Warner Brothers, another new attraction down the shore. Disney characters, Warner Brothers characters, they're famous throughout the world. The Taj Mahal attracts everybody's attention, the largest casino at the shore. And everyone wants to get in the act there. People were intrigued by the color, the lights, the spectacle, and of course the money. Mr. Watts, one of our teachers who helped chaperone, also displaying his dexterity at yo-yo. Here's the group gathering. And you can see from everyone's faces that the exchange was very successful. Students getting to know one another here on the train from Atlantic City. It's a great experience to get to know people on the other side of the world, exchange views, learn something about another culture, to be able to know another language, to appreciate the differences and similarities that people have in one another. And this is Shana and Amber, who were hosting in the previous spring's exchange, and students in the previous spring. This is a scene from one of the fundraisers we had at the American Legion in Magnolia. The Sterling High School Ukrainian Exchange Boosters sponsored this fundraiser for the purpose of augmenting the funds we need to run this program. It's very expensive, particularly to host. But we also like to supplement the students' fares when we go in the spring. So we try to hold costs down. The boosters do a great job. Here we are at South Philadelphia Italian Market. Again, a unique cultural visit. We do try to bring students into the neighborhoods. It's interesting that both Kiev and Philadelphia are both neighborhood cities. They're both green cities. And there's a lot of similarity between the two places in terms of being able to live. Both cities are very livable cities, and I think it is an experience that we can share together. This is in front of the Ukrainian Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception, the largest Ukrainian Catholic cathedral in the world, located in Center City. This is inside the cathedral, and it gives you, again, typical example of Byzantine Eastern Rite religious architecture. And this is a group shot we took on the grounds of the cathedral. Later we visited America, which is the Ukrainian-American newspaper sponsored by the Ukrainian Catholic Church. And this is the light show at Hex, which was formerly Wanamaker's. It's hard to keep up with what the names of these department stores are anymore, but the light show, unique feature. Luckily, we were able to visit during the Christmas season, and of course the decorations are everywhere. The houses are decorated, Christmas trees, a unique time of the year. One of the things we do to give everybody a break is we take a little camping trip at Belle Plaine State Park, a beautiful forest. Students got a chance to relax, and it's the only time the students really have to be together. A number of teachers and parents pitch in, and we try to make a good time down there. Here are some of the parents getting ready to assist us. Mrs. Barbara Miller, Fran Vogel, and some of our students having one of our meals. Mrs. Miller, who has got to be one of the greatest women in the world, really does a wonderful job for our community in many, many ways. Mr. John Gardner, a veteran camper, he helps us every year. He enjoys the trip, and Mr. Todd Green here, also assisting us in his own particular way. It's really a good opportunity to just relax, because it's a very fast-paced 3 weeks between the school events, visiting the sending schools, working in classes, just trying to keep up with yourself. Here the Americans and Ukrainians engaged in two kinds of football games, one American style and one European football, which is really soccer. And we didn't do too well in the soccer game, but we did pretty well on the American side. Once again, we were blessed with very good weather, and you can see the American students and Ukrainian students really got to know one another well. And again, I wouldn't be very productive if it wasn't for the help we get from the adults. Electric generators gave us the opportunity to watch Monday Night Football down there. And as you can see, on the smiles on the faces tell it all. They say what the exchange is really all about. And I urge anyone who has the opportunity to get involved in something like this. This is Sharif Branham, and Larissa Sharif is a veteran of our exchange program going back to the original group in 1990. Mr. Dennis Harkins, a member of the Board of Education, very supportive of the exchange program over the years, has been involved in foreign travel for a long, long time with students, and is a big supporter of that kind of learning. And here we're getting close to the goodbyes and farewells. The students have gotten to know one another well. They've bonded well. They've made friends. And before you know it, it is time to say goodbye. Time does move quickly when you're having a good time and you're enjoying yourself. These are some of the photos taken by Nicole Miller, various stages of our trip. This is Mr. Joe Giambri, our business administrator. He helps us pay the bills, and he also is involved with the candy factory. The students enjoyed that part of the visit. We also had the opportunity to go to the Phantoms game, which the students enjoyed very much. Our professional hockey team in Philadelphia. And this is our farewell photograph in front of the school before everyone gets ready to depart. It's a very quick 3 weeks. Again, it's a very involved schedule, a very aggressive schedule. I urge all students who are interested in this kind of program and can keep up with the pace, who are hardworking, rugged, and dedicated, to take advantage of this opportunity.
Great job to all that hosted, and good luck to the students who will be going to the Ukraine this year. And now here's Mr. Tannenbaum with the 1997-98 Teacher of the Year.
I'm Dave Tannenbaum, principal of Sterling High School, and with me is Linda Rosbert, assistant principal. And between us here is Mrs. Mary Ann Morgan, who's just found out she's Teacher of the Year for Sterling High School, 1997-98. We're in Mrs. Morgan's graphic arts class. The committee met last night. We went over many nominations, and all I can say is we're very, very proud of Mrs. Morgan. She has contributed to this school in such a way that wherever you go, you see students' artwork. Wherever you go, whether it be in her classes, media center, around the building, the impact of the work she's done with her students over the years is seen every day. Pretty exciting moment.
Yes, and for the first time in my life, I'm speechless. I am.
I can attest to that. This is a new...
I don't know what to say, except thank you very much, everyone, especially the students.
And on behalf of Sterling High School, and I'm sure on behalf of your students, you're welcome. Congratulations. Mr. Randazzo is one of our physics teacher at one of our physics teachers at Sterling High School. I'm Dave Tannenbaum, principal of Sterling High School. And last night, our committee made a selection of 2 runner-ups and a finalist for Teacher of the Year. Mr. Randazzo was one of our runner-ups. So congratulations. Thank you. Thank you very much. The ticket, please, or the balloon. It's a little memento.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. Mr. Tannenbaum, principal of Sterling High School. With me is Mr. Scott Manlove. Last night, the Teacher of the Year committee voted for a Teacher of the Year plus 2 runner-ups, and one of our runner-ups is Mr. Scott Manlove. So, Mrs. Rosbert, the ticket, please. A little memento from this morning to thank you, and congratulations.
Thank you very much.
And maybe next year, who knows?
I'm Mrs. Rao, teacher of the Human Relationships and Family Living classes. Part of the projects that we do is what we call a Beautiful Baby Egg project. The students are unexpected parents. That means in cooperation with the nurse, Mrs. Ilya, and the students and parents, we do a project that involves what it would be like to be an unexpected parent. Each student will select a partner or decide to be a single parent. The babies are delivered by our school nurse. They are weighed, measured, and given a name. At that point, the student is responsible for the baby's care for 5 days. If they'd like to do extra credit, they may do it over the weekend, or they may make a phone call in the middle of the night. They select a time between 2 and 5 o'clock, call the school, leave a message on my voicemail, and then call back a half an hour later. This is to simulate what it would be like to get up for a night feeding. The students also have some incidents that happen during the project, and that means if there's a child that's been neglected or abused or is missing, they're required to do some extra research. The students really enjoy this project. There are lots of fun things and memories that they have as a result of this project, and we wish them always good luck.
Despite the egg naps and the minor cracks, the Baby Egg Project was once again a great success here at Sterling. This year, the drama department will be performing Guys and Dolls here at Sterling. The show dates are April 2nd, 3rd, and 4th at 8 p.m., with a special matinee Saturday, April 4th at 2 p.m. The cast and crew have put in a lot of work. Here's Mr. DePrince for a look at some of the preparation.
Hello. I'm Anthony Prince, Technical Director of Sterling High School's spring musical, Guys and Dolls. This year's musical will take place on April 2nd, 3rd, and 4th at 8 p.m. in the Sterling High School Auditorium. There will also be a special matinee at 2 p.m. on Saturday, April 4th. As you are aware, it takes a great deal of effort by both students and staff to put on such a production. Let's meet some of the staff members that are involved in this year's musical. I'm here with Mr. Patrick in the chorus room getting ready with some of the sets and painting some of the signs that are going to be in Guys and Dolls. Mr. Patrick, what are you working on right now?
Well, one of the many hats I wear is that of art director, and so that's just what I'm doing today.
We're making up some signs for different scenes. We're doing the Hot Box nightclub sign and the signs for the sewer scene and for the Save a Soul mission scene. You can see my enthusiastic artists here applying their various trades. All I have to do is tell them what to do and it magically appears.
Mr. Mike Russo, who's the set director, has been working in the last couple of weeks getting the set together. What are we trying to achieve this year with the set on the stage?
We're trying to achieve simplicity, mainly. We're using what's called a unit set, in which the same basic set serves for the whole play. And then changes in lighting and very small changes in sets will allow the actors and their costumes and their performances to be the main focus on the stage, which is what we prefer to do anyway.
And what kind of colors are we going to see this year? What kind of effects do we want to see on the stage in terms of the era and things like that?
Well, we have a New York City skyline that's supposed to be authentic to the 1940s. I haven't absolutely checked that, but I think that's pretty well the case. We also have colorful Salvation Army costumes, colorful shirts and hats on the gamblers, and it makes the actors stand out more.
How important is the set and the colors and things like that when you put a production on like this?
Well, you try to make that the canvas on which the actors can be the artwork. So you don't want the sets and things like that to overshadow them, but to support them and give them a frame within which to work.
And when you get the students ready, how many weeks before the show do you select the cast, and how long does it take to really get the cast ready to go on for a production like this?
We have our auditions about 3 months before showtime, so that people have time to study their scripts and learn their music, so that we can, in reasonable rehearsal hours during the week, have plenty of time to get the show together.
Tara, you've been the costumer for about the last 20 years here at Sterling for dramas and musicals. Tell us a little bit about what's different about this show and what kind of costumes you had to get ready for Guys and Dolls.
Well, just by sheer numbers this year, it's a lot more. We have at least 3 or 4 big dance numbers with 18 girls, and the Havana number has 5 guys and 5 girls. So it's a lot of work, but we're continuing the Sterling tradition of providing our own costumes, renting as little as possible. In fact, in this show, the only rentals will be the Salvation Army uniforms.
I'm here with Mr. George Mackis, choreographer and music director for Guys and Dolls. George, tell me a little bit about the play, musical Guys and Dolls, and maybe a little bit about the history and, how famous it is, things like that.
The show, it's generally considered to be a Broadway staple. It was recently revived on Broadway. It was planned and put together around 1948 and actually opened on Broadway, I believe, in 1952. It was written by Frank Lesser, who wrote both the words and the music, which is kind of an odd situation for most Broadway composers. He wrote a lot of other shows, including Most Happy Fella and Charlie's Aunt, I think, which starred Jack Benny. Did a lot of shows. He also, the woman who played Miss Sarah in the original Broadway show eventually became his wife, Jo Serling. And they had a long association together. Frank Lesser also wrote a lot of other tunes, most famous probably being Baby It's Cold Outside. And the original show starred Vivian Blaine as Adelaide, and most people aren't aware of it, but Alan Alda's father, Robert Alda, played the original Sky Masterson on Broadway. The movie, which I don't feel was nearly quite as good as the show, did manage to get most of the original Broadway cast, so we have some of those performances on film, but the editing of the movie and the way MGM put it together, I think kind of did some damage to the intent of the original script.
How hard is it? I mean, this is actually, obviously we know now it's a very famous musical and a very famous production. I mean, how hard is it for the students to learn these parts? Are these difficult parts to learn musically and lines?
I would say musically, the show is not very difficult, not tremendously difficult. Dramatically, these characters are based on people that Damon Runyon, who actually wrote the stories upon which the show is based. These are actually based on real people that Damon Runyon knew. Damon Runyon was a newspaper man in New York during the 1920s and the 1930s and 40s. And he wrote a number of short stories, which Frank Lesser took and blended into this particular show. So the characters actually are based on real people, although they're somewhat caricatures of real people, but the emotions are real, and the love interests and the stories in that, they have a kind of a ringing true aspect to them.
You're also the choreographer for the show. What kind of choreography are people likely to see in this? Is it something difficult or interesting? What's people going to see? So do we all.
I hope it's interesting. There's a very athletic guys number involving the crapshooters dance that takes place in the second act. There's two really rather cute and lively numbers that the girls do, Bushel and a Peck and Take Back Your Mink, one in the first act, one in the second act. Those are the three major dance numbers. Then there's a sequence that takes place in Havana, Cuba in the early 1950s, which is fairly lively. And then there's a fight on stage also that takes place. So all of those things tend to make it interesting and fun for the kids and rather lively. The choreography is modern, basically modern dancing, that kind of thing.
Tell us a little bit about the characters and some of the talent we have behind the performances in the cast this year. I know you had to pair up having two people play one part and alternating nights. Is that because we have just such a great amount of talent, or is that we just want to share it?
Mr. Patrick and I, when we had the auditions, we found that we had a number of young ladies who seemed to have exceptional abilities. And there are really only two major parts for women in this show. And since, as Mr. Patrick is fond of saying, we had an embarrassment of riches, we decided to double up on the two girls' parts. The girls are all very talented and quite capable. There are basically four characters in the show that the story revolves around. There's a comic romantic situation and a serious romantic situation. The comic situation deals with Nathan Detroit and his long-standing fiancée of 14 years, Miss Adelaide. And as I said, they've been engaged for 14 years, and it all centers on whether or not she's going to ever get him to the altar. And on the other aspect, there is a more serious romance between Sky Masterson, who is a rather big-time successful gambler, and a Salvation Army sergeant named Sarah Brown. And that's the more serious romance of the two.
Well, I'm here with Mr. Mike Russo, a member of our Technology Education Department and our set designer and builder for this year's production. Mike, tell us a little bit about what you've done so far in preparing for the set and building it.
Okay. What we did, the first thing we did was design the set. We came up with an idea for Guys and Dolls, and we decided we would use platform framing. So what we did was we constructed this layer look of a platform with curves, kind of make it a more smooth, inviting set. We put together a little trellis here for a tropical scene. We have our pipes over here that we put together for the sewer scene, and we have the skyline background elevated 2 feet off the ground for our skyline.
Okay, Mike, how long did it take you to build this set, and do the students get involved in it?
Yes, the students do get involved. My Woods and Plastics classes are involved, and my Technology Student Association students are involved. To build a set like this, it takes about 3 weeks of time in the evenings and on Saturdays. The students come in on Saturdays, and some of my students in class constructed some of the platforms here. Basically, it's just screws, plywood, and 1/4-inch Luan to create this, along with the elevated platforms.
How do you come up with the design of the set? I know you work with Mr. Mackis and Mr. Patrick and myself, but I mean, how do you come up with the final design? Is it do you design it all first, or do you just, as you're building, you figure out what you're going to do? What's the best way to do it?
Well, we design it first. We came up with an idea that we wanted, and then we came up with 2 or 3 rough drafts. Once they were approved by Mr. Mackis and Dan Patrick and Tony, we decided to go ahead with the construction.
Many Sterling students try out for the spring musical, and those who are selected are notified before the Christmas holidays. Immediately following the Christmas holidays in January, the students begin rehearsals for the spring musical in April. Let's meet some of those cast members. Kenny plays the part of Benny Southstreet, one of the other main characters in this year's production of Guys and Dolls. Kenny, tell me a little bit about Benny Southstreet.
Benny is Nathan's best friend. They do everything together. They stick together through it all. Benny helps him find a place to have the gambling crap game at. They also dodge the police together, and he protects Nathan in like a big fight and everything. He's like his main ace, his pal.
And how hard of a character is it to play Benny? I mean, what did you have to do to prepare for it?
Benny isn't really that hard of a character to play. He's a lot like me. He's a fun guy. He likes to dance. He's just out there having fun and hanging around with his pal Nathan, which is kind of like what we do in real life anyway, but it's pretty cool.
You're a senior this year. You've performed in almost every production here at Sterling since you've been a freshman. What are your future plans?
Actually, I'm going to school to be a doctor, but I am going to still do theater as my minor. So hopefully if anything happens, then I'll put my doctor degree on hold and go with theater. But my ambitions are actually to be a doctor.
Great. Dave plays the character of Nicely Johnson in Guys and Dolls. Dave, tell me a little bit about the character of Nicely.
He's mainly the comic relief. He's always eating something, usually celery, something of that sort. He's always walking on stage with something to eat. He says a lot of funny things. He's always on stage with Benny South Street and Nathan Detroit. They're more or less like the three main guys.
How hard of a character was it to prepare for? I mean, what did you do to prepare for this character?
It was pretty easy. Usually Mr. Patrick gives me the comedy parts. Like usually I'm the person who says the funny things, does the stupid stuff, the normal.
Do you like playing that kind of character?
Yeah, that's my favorite kind of thing. I don't think I could really play a serious character because I'm just like the comedy kind of guy. I like to say, everybody's always laughing at me. I'm always saying stupid things like that.
You're a senior this year, correct? What are your plans next year?
Probably go to Camden County for theater and speech, just a minor degree for 2 years, and then from there I'm not really sure, maybe switch to a 4-year college to maybe get a bigger degree in that, or possibly go to culinary school, something along those lines.
Great, thank you. One of the main characters in Guys and Dolls is Sarah. Sarah this year at Sterling High School is playing by both Janine Gilbert and Karen Mann. Karen, tell me a little bit about the character of Sarah.
Sarah is a missionary, and she's very strict in her morals and has everything set. And then when Sky comes in, he kind of changes it all. When I first got the part of Sarah, I was really surprised, and I knew that it is a lot of work. It's a lot of hard work, but it does pay off. And you have to sit down and read your lines, go over it each day. But in the end, it's all worth it when you have a beautiful production and you get a big applause at the end.
What year are you this year? Are you a junior, senior?
I'm a junior this year.
What are your future plans? You plan to proceed in this field, or what would you like to do?
I guess I would like to, as a little aside, but I guess I'm really looking to be an accountant when I'm older.
Great, thank you. Adelaide is one of the main female characters in Guys and Dolls. Adelaide is played this year by both Jenna Rupertus and Maylin Culbertson. Jenna, tell me a little bit about the character of Adelaide.
Adelaide's sort of a ditzy character. She's the typical blonde. Basically, she's just, really in love with Nathan, and she really just, all she wants is to be with him, and that's mainly it. And she worries about everything that's, girlish, and that's it.
Maylin, how difficult was it to prepare for the character of Adelaide?
Well, it was kind of hard because you have to learn how to do a voice for it because she's, like Jenna said, she's a ditz, so she kind of talks like it. And it was hard to learn how to sing in the voice and everything. Plus, you have to deal with the fact that she has a cold the whole play, so you have to kind of work that into your voice. So that was mostly the only thing you had to prepare for.
Jenna, why don't you give us a sample of what that voice sounds like?
Hello, darling. How you doing?
Maylin, let's hear your version.
Hello, dear.
Thank you very much. Often, it's difficult to realize what's going on behind the scenes. But at Sterling High School, we have 7 or 8 stage crew members working on a production like this. Let's meet 2 of them right now. Okay, Mike, we're back in the projection booth where we control all of our stage lighting and microphones and wireless mics and compression mics for our stage and for our house. Explain a little bit about the equipment that's back there that you use during a performance.
Okay, this is the soundboard where we mix all of our all the different microphones and everything that produces sound on the stage. We use wireless microphones for the main characters and for many of the solos during the performance, and they're picked up by the receivers over here, which send the signal to the mixer where we control the volume of each person. Also, we use condenser microphones, which are placed on the floor, and they pick up any sounds by the other characters that are not wearing wireless microphones. Also, we have several overhead microphones which just hang down and pick up, again, just like these compression microphones, they pick up the other sounds of the chorus. From the mixer, the sound goes to the amplifier, which powers the 4 speakers in the auditorium. Also, before, during, and at the end of the show, we mix in different types of music using the CD player, tape player, and sometimes the radio. And all of that is controlled by the mixer, which is probably the most important part of our sound system.
I'm here with Micah Wenker, a senior here at Sterling High School. He is my assistant technical director and lighting technician. Micah, what do you do back here in terms of controlling the lights on the stage?
Well, I basically just turn what lights need to be up and what lights need to be down for the play, change scenes and stuff like that.
How important is it for you, like, to follow the script and know what's going on in the show and communicate with the people backstage?
What I do is just basically just pay attention to what has to be done, and then once it gets done, keep paying attention to what.
Do you communicate with the people working the spotlights and things upstairs? I mean, basically, you're the lighting director during the show. What do you do?
Right. We usually have walkie-talkies, and we talk to each other up behind stage and up on top of the booth here with the spotlights, and so we can communicate on what has to be done on stage.
And how long have you been on the stage crew?
4 years. I've been on it since I was a freshman.
Okay. And what are your plans for next year?
I'll probably go on to Widener and work tech and stuff like that if I can.
Okay. Thanks. I hope this inside look at this year's spring musical of Guys and Dolls has helped you understand a little bit more about what we do here in the drama department. Don't forget, this year's spring musical, Guys and Dolls, will be April 2nd, 3rd, and 4th at the high school.
Thanks for joining us for this month's edition of Nightlife. For everyone on the Nightlife crew, I'm Stephen Chapman. Have a good evening, and we'll see you in April.
When you see a guy reach for stars in the sky, you can bet that he's doing it for some doll. When you spot a John waiting out in the rain, chances are he's insane, as only a John could be for a Jane. When you see a gent paying all kinds of rent for a flat that would flatten the Taj Mahal, call it sad, call it funny, but it's better than even money that the guy's only doing it for some doll.